Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of The Eternals. Now this is by Jack Kirby. This is the massive monster, king size, super duper size, whatever you want to call it. It's the huge one anyway. Absolutely enormous, and you can see there, so I've just turned it around, it's got all the back covers on this. Now this came out in 2020. It's quite not fair. It's been sitting on my to read pile, and I've been going through it. It's absolutely fascinating, great stories all over the place. Standard sort of Jack Kirby, but brilliant, just full of so much imagination, so many great ideas all the way through it. And well, it's, I say, huge. Weirdly, and it says here, obviously, unbridled imagination, etc. So Eternals introduce a new pantheon of heroes, villains, and cosmic overlords. It says the Eternals, once worshipped as gods, left Earth to explore the stars. So it's slightly different in that. Compared with the film, of course, after warring with the Greeks, Roman and Norse gods, everything's thrown into this. You've got the Deviants, you've got the Towering Celestials, and all those sort of things. So I love all that. The weird thing is, on the back it says, collecting Jack Kirby's complete epic, issue 1 to 11, an annual 1, which is very odd since there's actually 1 to 19 in this. So obviously they got that for some weird reason. Maybe it is 1 to 11, but it says 1 to 19. And it's got 19 issues in it, along with the annual. So it's very strange that they did that. How big is this compared with a standard comic book? Well, I'm just going to put a standard comic book there, Captain America from 1973. And you can see it's obviously a lot larger and a lot heavier. However, because it's so heavy, it actually, sadly, my copy has got badly damaged very quickly. I think within a day, just by... Well, it started out slightly damaged when I got it. So this is one trouble with all these things. They're just so heavy. Literally, slightest damage, that's it. And of course, it just gets progressively worse. A slight tear, probably one day, the cover will probably come off at some point. However, let's just quickly go through the book. And there you've got lovely, there you've got an introduction, which is always good, of course. There's the introduction. Now, how to put this onto the table without actually breaking the table. And you've got the Eternals. You've got all the covers, of course. And you can see the artwork. The artwork is just brilliant there. You found it! Blah, blah, blah. The Day of the Gods. And, of course, Icarus, Circe, all those characters, all in the story. And you've got the Deviants, of course, there as well. And you can see just the colours are really brilliant, really. Now, of course, lots of people like or prefer the original colour. So that's, of course, if you like those. Of course, the original comics are still around. You can still pick them up. I think generally, other than probably issue 1, you can find them reasonably priced. And you can see there you've got brilliant artwork there. But sometimes these books are quite impractical, actually, to be honest. In some ways, I wish I'd bought because there is a epic or complete collection available. So in many ways, I should have bought that, I think. I decided to buy this, and of course there's also an omnibus edition as well that's available. So you've got, brilliant, standard, superb Jack Kirby artwork, but the story is just all over the place. Great characters introduced all the way through. You got here, look, of course you've got Celestials there. One of the Celestials, nearly about the size of the book. I must admit, he's probably... He probably reads this sort of book. I imagine that the Celestial sits here and just reads this one. Of course, it would be probably tiny for him as well. It'd be a very thumbnail sort of book, wouldn't it? And you've got, obviously, Circe there. So you've got a lot of the characters, obviously, that turn up in the film as well. Not all of them. I don't think all of them. You've got Sprite. She turns up as well. And you've got the Power of Olympia. You've got all the covers, of course. The covers look absolutely superb. So you've got Olympia there. You can see that. Ooh. And like I say, this just does it right done. It's one of those books where people say, why don't you just put it on a sort of an overhead camera? Well, I haven't got an overhead camera, so it's going to be a tricky one. But you've got, again, great story and a probably back injury by the end of this if I keep holding this book. You've also got, of course, Unimind and all those sort of things. And just loads and loads of concepts all the way through this. It's just superb. Very different from the film, of course. The film is absolutely thoroughly enjoyable. And I'm just going to move that away just for a few seconds. I love the film. I must admit, thoroughly, it's very different. Of course, never expect a Hollywood film to ever match any of the books. So it's just one of those things. But I thought it was very good. Thoroughly enjoyed all the characters. Story moved smoothly through. Of course, it wasn't. Everyone said, "Oh, it's overcomplicated, too many characters." I didn't really find that at all. Found it quite reasonable to follow, and all the characters absolutely fine. Good story, all the relationships, things. I mean, of course, there's always things you think, "Oh, why did they do that? Why did they, this character, whatever?" It makes no sense sometimes, but that's always the way. I'm certain if you watch it a couple of times, you might think, "Oh, right, that's the reason." And sometimes there's a logical reason why some things that work brilliantly in the comic book, and comic books also can be analysed, and you think, well, that's a bit daft. Why does that? And characters, of course, are always brought back or not, whatever. So, and there's so many variations, which maybe is not so possible in films, of course. I mean, Eternals, they can just bring back multiple variations of the Eternals. Well, I suppose they could do exactly the same, of course, with the films. And you've got here Space God and the Fourth Host. And of course, this one bit in this, I must admit, was slightly odd and slightly misplaced, I thought, personally, was this. Introducing the cosmic powered Hulk. Very odd. Why? The Hulk just didn't seem... The Hulk was sort of drawn really odd, I thought, all the way through. It just wasn't really right for me. I must admit, you got the Hulk there. Personally, I just didn't. I thought that was a bit of an unusual... If you're going to bring in some of the other characters, of course, from the Marvel Universe, it would have made... So maybe not the Hulk, perhaps. I mean, maybe the Inhumans or something would have made a much more sensible set of characters you would have thought to bring into the storyline. But instead they got that. And the Hulk, well, maybe it makes sense. But personally, I thought it was a bit silly. And you got it's just great. They're all... And there's, of course, Sprite there. Oh, if I can hold that there, you can see the characters there. An absolutely brilliant blood sucker. Now, it doesn't have many items at the back. And this is really about it in terms of the extras. You've got a couple of pages. You can see there some more pages, Marvel checklist, etc. And that's it for bonus material. With obviously just a lovely one at the back of the picture there. And that's it, really, for the book. Well, I loved it, I must admit. But I think all these monster editions or whatever they're called, king-size editions, are always a bit impractical. Personally, I think the sort of complete or the omnibus edition is probably going to be much better. But still, I mean, it's great, and it is really wonderful looking at the artwork really close up. You can see, of course, all the... Even better, of course, would be if Marvel brought out an artisan or artist edition so you could actually see the original artwork. I think that's even better, probably, that sort of thing. Because sometimes I think the colour, of course, the colour is very, very... sort of obviously been updated. It just sometimes a bit garish in places, maybe for some people. So I still think it's still a really, really interesting. Oh, you got obviously the thing there. Ben Grimm. He's become a second-rate Ben Grimm. So you've got some Marvel characters sort of seem to be turning up in this story. But like I say, very odd. It didn't really fit particularly with the Marvel Universe as you sort of know it all the way through. It wasn't like Captain America and all those sort of characters turning up regularly. So it's still brilliant volume. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but must admit, I don't think I could hold it for much longer. Well, as the film, I must admit, the film, loved it. Absolutely loved it. Perhaps a bit too long. You could always argue that it's quite a lengthy film, but I didn't really feel while I was watching it that I was looking at my watch thinking, when's this going to finish? When's this going to finish? It just didn't. And I thought it was the effects were decent. I mean, they weren't nothing that I haven't seen before in a sense, but it was still perfectly reasonable story. And also, even better, while I was watching it, one of my old mates turned up in the film. And I know of no one that's remotely sort of... So, in terms of just seeing someone that I remember from many, many years ago, it was just great. I haven't seen him for ages, but it was still wonderful to see him. He was the priest in a certain scene, and it was just, wow, just on screen. I thought, And then, of course, I waited along to see at the end, see the credits, and I thought, oh, wow. So that was really nice to see. Big surprise, and made the film even more special for me. And also, of course, with the film, it was great always to wait along, when seeing the credits, of course, you see all the extra bits. Always amazes me every time when I go to see a Marvel film, especially, you always see everyone leave. Quite often, I'm like the only person left in the cinema. Where's everyone gone? They've all wandered out, and you think, well, there's still quite often about 10 minutes of the film sort of left, and you think, oh, and there was some quite good. I must admit, there was a great revelation at the end, and I'm not going to say obviously who certain people have checked out and know already, but when I was completely lost on me, one of the characters, this character turned up, and I thought, I'm certain if I said, wow, it's XYZ. didn't register at all for me. I wouldn't have known at all. So it was completely, yeah, whoever. So if in Paul McCartney or something, I would have called that's Paul McCartney. Bob Dylan. Well, hey, it's Bob Dylan. No, he isn't in the film. No, I don't think he is anyway. Possibly not. But then I wouldn't mind known. But still, it was still great to see, and actually really nice bits at the end. And I always enjoyed those. They're always sometimes actually the best bits of films. I actually just also watched I won't even say it, the Master of Kung Fu one, the Chang-Chi or Chang-Chai or whatever it is. How are you supposed to say it? I have no idea. However, I loved that film, and I also loved obviously again, they put some extra bits in. And I enjoyed the comic books of that as well, years and years and years ago. And so it was nice to see it as a film. That was generally pretty good as well. I must admit, I can't understand the way that they do the films now in terms of the Eternals, because I assume within a couple of weeks' time it'll be on probably Disney Plus, and I'll be thinking, what? That's really odd, but who knows? It's still, I did enjoy Black Widow as well. Well, it was okay. I wouldn't say it was a masterpiece, but again, Eternals probably wasn't a masterpiece either. However, back to this book, this is definitely one. If you're an Eternals fan and you love the film, and I think obviously you're going to probably get this book. I think this is just great. Or maybe the omnibus edition probably is going to be better. And I don't know if it's out of print or anything now, was about the same price. So it's always very tricky. Sometimes this comes down quite rapidly in price. I've seen reasonably priced, so it's very variable. Omnibuses sometimes keep the value a bit more maybe than these. But like I say, worth checking out. So totally recommended, of course. This is just a great classic Jack Kirby. Love all of Jack Kirby's works. Eternals, absolutely brilliant. So even if I can't hold it any longer.